And I'm going to do this. You're not going to like this because I'm going to pour water on the feelings that seem to circle about this. I think the term culture is one of the most ridiculous terms thrown around today. It has got to be one of the most misused terms today. The word I hate most in all of sports that is overused more than anything else that's even more ridiculous than culture, and that is adversity. That just drives me nuts. But culture is starting to drive me nuts. If you mean when you say culture, and a lot of people say it, if you mean an organization that wins consistently, then I can tell you what creates that. And I can tell you the reason that's created. It's not about feelings and culture at all. Okay? I'm sorry. And what's weird about this is the reason I bring this up is that Cam Newton, the former college star, one of the best college players of all time, and NFL MVP, Cam Newton, the podcaster, is getting ripped for people thinking that he's ripping Steve Sarkisian. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to defend Cam Newton because what he said is right. What he meant was correct, and it wasn't even intended as criticism. And it's because people are so obsessed with the feelings that go around so much stuff that you're glomming onto the term culture, and I think you've completely twisted things, and I don't find anything that he said incorrect at all. Here's why it's sort of newsworthy right now, and that is the Houston Chronicle. Why is Cam Newton taking shots at Texas coach Steve Sarkisian? Man, that sounds rough. Yeah, why? Here's the way the Chronicle reports this. Texas coach Steve Sarkisian rebuilt the Longhorns into a college football power in recent years, 25 wins and 2 college football playoff semifinal appearances across the last 2 seasons. Sarkisian described his culture of vulnerability in an appearance on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams. Now, I'm going to compliment him a lot, but what I'm going to compliment him on has nothing to do with succeeding on the football field. I'm sorry, it doesn't. And that's what Cam Newton is trying to point out. And people are flipping out. Sarkisian said this: I deal with 18 to 22-year-old guys, okay? Probably the least vulnerable group that you could pick out. They're trying to figure out who they are, right? They're in the transition of moving away from home, finding out who they are in a world of social media where it's like, put everything out there that makes me as good as I can look, but inside, who am I? I feel like the only way to tap into them, to develop those relationships, is to be vulnerable with them. He has a great story. I don't think people appreciate his story enough, but his story doesn't make them better in football. I'm going to tell you what really is culture, what really makes you win consistently. You're not going to like it because it's almost exactly what Cam Newton just said. So then Cam Newton, he's got a podcast. He says he sees a clear correlation between dollar signs and victories. He says Coach Sarkisian and all that stuff is cool. Building a culture does take some time, but having access to rich boosters attached to the University of Texas helps. They also have probably the number 1 spending in the nation. That's what I'll say. F all that other stuff, man. Any great coach knows that for me to be labeled a great coach, I need great players. And nowadays, those players are at a great expense. My man, I understand. The only way you're able to assemble these rosters is, yeah, it's about building a culture, but it's about spending that brand that can make them come to the dance. Look, I'll take it even further. I think he even danced around the issue. It is about spending. It is. It's not about feelings. It's not. It doesn't dismiss the story of Sarkisian and the great story he has to tell, whether you're a football player or not, whether he's a football coach or not. It is compelling. It is inspiring. But at the end of the day, it's just talent. It's talent. And I can explain to you how talent matters more than the obvious. And talent today is purchased. Is it cultivated? Yeah, some. I can tell you how it's cultivated even more. It has not much to do with a coach. So Sarkisian's story, and this really is true whether it's a football coach or not. He has made it to the other side of an addiction, and his story is a great one. Heck, the guy even had open heart surgery. He shares his story. He's not afraid to share his story, and it's admirable. All that stuff is true. Every one of us can respect someone who's beaten an addiction. Anyone that does that has a great story to tell. It is compelling. It is inspiring. The fact that Steve Sarkisian shares that story with his players is great. Those are great lessons to learn. But that would be true of any 18-year-old or 75-year-old. And good for him that he does it. I don't think he gets complimented enough about all that he's been through and making it to the other side. An incredibly high-profile flame-out with his addiction. But that's not why Texas is good in football. It's not. I mean, again, give the guy all the respect in the world for what he's done as a human being and the story he tells as a human being. All that stuff is right on. But they're not the best program, one of the best programs now and for the foreseeable future because of that story. It's not because he's vulnerable and he gets along with his players. It doesn't work that way. And Cam Newton pointing that out, I guess, just makes people mad. I don't know. Are you really afraid to admit that it's about the money? Does that really cut at the core somehow? Because it is. It is. Oh, I'm not saying doesn't mean you don't coach at all, but I'll give you examples. And I think it's pretty obvious that most of what's going on today is about the money. And that doesn't diss him as a coach. Certainly doesn't diss him as a human being. So the best programs, okay, this is what you really get down to. The best programs that are winning now and that will win in the future. It's a bigger list. It's a list that I think is going to shrink over time. And I think it's pretty obvious the list of programs that are highly successful now and will be highly successful for the foreseeable future, I think it's going to shrink because I think you still have remnants of pre-sugar daddy economics factoring into this. But the programs are Texas, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, yes, Georgia, yes, Alabama. And I'm going to say to a degree because I think they're going to have a more difficult time as time goes on. Assuming nothing changes in the economics of college football, they're going to be good, but there's a big difference between being good and among the elite. And to be among the elite consistently, you have to have a big payroll. I'll add SMU. Watch. Just watch. I mean, they're coming out of nowhere. And they're going to keep going forward as long as it's about what you pay. Now you're going to say, well, but Jeff, I mean, all those programs have always won. You know, they're blue blood programs. Yeah, true. So was Nebraska. So was Oklahoma. And have you not noticed they're disappearing quickly? You think they don't have history? You don't think they don't have nice locker rooms? You think they don't have cool trophy cases? You think they don't have cool highlight films of the old days? You think they don't have legendary players? Of course they do. That stuff doesn't matter. And Cam Newton is pointing it out, and it's true. It's true. Doesn't mean he's not telling a great story. Doesn't mean that he doesn't get along with his players. I think that's really great. I've known coaches that don't get along with their players at all, and they're still great teams. So these programs that are disappearing have plenty of history. These programs like in Oregon that all of a sudden are just, and SMU that are just sort of roaring into the picture, you know exactly why they are, because they're paying the money. If the NFL had no salary cap, the Cowboys would be in the playoffs regularly. Correct? So what Cam Newton said and what he even implied is right. The best programs that are winning now will continue to win as long as they pay. So what is this culture thing? Let me tell you what happens. And I'll even use Nick Saban's teams as an example. All right? What matters is talent, and that seems obvious. But it goes further than that. Talent makes the guy behind him good, and that makes the guy behind him good. The more competition all over the field has nothing to do with the coach. The more competition on the field makes the players better, because to win the job, you got to be that good. That's what makes the NFL team so great. That's why the worst NFL team could beat the best college team by 75 points. There are 9 guys that would cut your heart out to make that NFL roster. When you're on a really talented team that's deep, I've played on them before. Played on a team that had 18 guys get drafted. You didn't have to have a lot of feelings there, because every day, if you wanted to play, you had to do something better than the guy in front of you. You had to be more disciplined. You had to work harder to beat the guy in front of you. And the more of that stuff you have all over the field, talent makes everyone else better, because they have to work more. Deep talent, that's what makes you win consistently. That's what Saban was doing at Alabama. And that is stockpiling talent all over the place, like an NFL roster, because you have to compete like crazy to get to play. That makes you better. No matter speeches that someone can give, when you're not good enough, it's not going to matter. No matter how vulnerable your players are, how many lessons you can teach to them. In the end, it's whether or not you're better than the guy in front of you. And the more competition you have all over the field, that team's just going to get better. On rosters that I played on where they were just lights out talented, a coach didn't have to say 3 words. You don't have to do a heck of a lot, because those guys are having to work every single day to beat out the guy in front of them. And if you have a bad day, you lose your spot. That's what keeps you on top. Now, Texas has that. They have a cycle of talent. I mean, you want to give Sarkisian credit for that? Yeah, give him credit for that. I mean, building a roster of talented players is just going to keep feeding on itself, because they have to work hard to beat out the guy in front of them. To have a job, you have to work harder. To have a job, you have to beat out the guy in front of you, or else you don't get the next job. To stay wealthy, you got to keep working really hard, because there's more good players coming to take your job. That's what makes those NFL teams so good, because guys will do anything to get that money and keep that money. And the money's driving it all. I don't know why everyone's mad at Cam Newton for saying it. I mean, did you think that he was, maybe it came across this way, that he didn't give enough credit to the story of Sarkisian? If you think that, then that's fair. That's true. The guy deserves the credit. His story deserves to be told. Anyone that hears him is going to like it. He's a likable guy. I think he runs. I think he generally runs a good program. You stockpile talent, it will take care of itself. Guys will work hard because they have no choice. And now that there's money involved, and now that it's a way of life, and you want to keep that way of life, and it's talented, you got to work harder to keep the job. That's why an average NFL career is 3.7 years. It is brutal to win those jobs and keep those jobs. That's about the money. Tell me it's not. So stop saying culture. Everyone just stop saying it. I have no idea if the coach has good feelings or not. Neither do you. Most people talking don't have that. I don't know that I would say Ryan Day is a football genius. I think most people would say he's not. He had better players than everyone else. And guess what? Those guys had to work hard to be better players, because there's guys right behind him that would take their... What is their culture? I have no idea what his story is, and neither do you. I mean, you could probably take Matt Rule at Nebraska, who I think is a very good coach. You could stick him at Ohio State, and they wouldn't lose much at all. But he's in Nebraska, and they're mid-level, even though they're historically a good program. I mean, it's just, the whole sport is about talent now. It's just like it is in the NFL. Except in the NFL, you have a salary cap. In college, you don't. So you can get on top and stay on top by stockpiling talent, because the talent's going to mostly follow the money. Not exclusively, but mostly follow the money. That's not a terrible thing to say, because it's true. And to say that meant that Cam Newton was ripping Steve Sarkisian, I don't think is true at all.